Without the Iron Dome, Israel would be in perpetually grave danger. Its short-range but highly effective mobile interceptors have to date blown many thousands of incoming rockets out of the sky. But the Iron Dome alone could not have repelled Iran's massive aerial attack this weekend. The source of the attack, multi-pronged, with missiles and drones launching not just from Iran itself, but also from Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. The nature of the attack also varied. Suicide drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and the timing of the attack staggered. With the relatively slow-moving drones being sent in first, Iran's cruise missiles fired about an hour later, and the strongest salvo coming last. Ballistic missiles, able to close the gap between Iran and Israel in a matter of minutes, all timed to strike at roughly the same moment. No, the Iron Dome was just one piece of Israel's defense puzzle. Two others, David Sling and Arrow 3, have dramatically different capabilities, different ranges, and even different approaches to destroying incoming missiles and aircraft. Then, on top of all three, Israel has one other trump card. Let's go through it. That video, posted online by the Israeli army 3 years ago. The Iron Dome is the bedrock of Israeli missile defense. It's nimble and especially useful when the attacker is launching rockets from just outside your doorstep.
Tonight, Israel's Iron Dome intercepting a barrage of rockets fired by Iran-backed militia group Hezbollah.
At least 2,200 rockets were fired towards Israel.
We're seeing a massive barrage of Iron Dome intercepts in the sky.
This is the most used air defense system, missile defense system in the world by far.
The Iron Dome makes headlines because it's the main line of defense against incoming attacks from Hamas and Hezbollah rockets, from Gaza and along Israel's border with other countries. They're literally on wheels, so they can move, and they do often move to keep the enemy guessing. And there are thought to be at least 10 Iron Dome batteries, each capable of firing 20 Tamir missiles in quick succession. Now, the Wall Street Journal actually did a pretty nice explainer specifically about the Iron Dome a few years ago, showing how it's made up of three parts. So you have radar, command and control, and the missile batteries themselves. Radar to detect enemy missile launches in real time as they happen, relaying information about an incoming rocket's speed and trajectory to a nerve center, which then must determine where the attack is actually headed. So is it going towards people or key military assets? If so, it launches a guided missile, which is in constant communication with the ground. Then, what's interesting, the missile never actually hits the incoming rocket. It blows itself up nearby. It's a proximity interceptor, and that explosion is what knocks out the target.
The advantage of a proximity system is just that. In other words, you don't actually have to hit the target missile. You can just come close enough.
Israel's army says the Iron Dome boasts a 90% success rate, but I will add, that number is heavily disputed, partly because the Iron Dome doesn't actually try to intercept all incoming rockets, only those heading towards strategic targets, and partly because there's no clear accounting of successes and failures beyond what Israel says itself. Either way, the Iron Dome is a base layer of Israel's missile defense. To reach further afield, Israel relies on very different technology.
For the first time, the David Sling was put into operational use, intercepting 2 Islamic Jihad rockets.
David Sling, shown in this military handout video, is a relatively new addition to Israel's defensive capability. According to the Israeli army, its first successful real-world launch was only about a year ago against 2 incoming rockets, both fired by the Islamic Jihad, one against Jerusalem, the other against Tel Aviv. David Sling has a much longer range than the Iron Dome, hundreds of kilometers.
It also can take out a wider range of targets, not just the rockets, but cruise missiles and even ballistic missiles.
David Sling missiles have two-stage propulsion. So stage one is launch. Once it burns out, it separates. Then the second system takes over to carry the missile to its target. This second stage gives it more power, more speed, more range. It also launches vertically, meaning it can change course in 360 degrees depending on where its target is coming from. And unlike the Iron Dome, David Sling fires hit-to-kill interceptors. What that means is you have these kind of sophisticated sensors on board and these guidance systems that track the incoming threat, and the missile slams directly into its target.
Seems to be quite effective. We can say that the system as a whole was extremely successful.
This was the proof. This was the first real challenge. These were large numbers. Most experts did not think that Iran would launch this volume of missiles, and it was extremely effective.
But even then, these aren't the biggest weapons in Israel's defensive arsenal. It is capable of firing at targets much farther away and at incredible speed.
Part of the system that operates at the highest altitude is the Arrow 3 system. And that is really designed to intercept ballistic missiles that are traveling on a trajectory through space.
The Arrow series of missiles may be the first ever instance of space warfare humanity has ever seen. Last October, a few weeks after the October 7th attack by Hamas, Israel's Arrow 2 intercepted a long-range ballistic missile fired from Houthis in Yemen. That interception happened high above the Earth's atmosphere, literally in space. A little over a week later, an Arrow 3 intercepted another missile from Yemen, this one targeting Israel's southern city of Eilat. And it's hard to know for sure. There's no clear data on this, but it's believed the Arrow Defense Network, which is what you're seeing here in this Israeli Ministry of Defense handout video, is what Israel relied on to stop most of the more than 100 Iranian ballistic missiles let loose this past Saturday. Of the weapon systems we've discussed, the Arrow is capable of flying the furthest. It's exo-atmospheric, so exo-atmospheric, meaning it flies high, high up, and it's hypersonic, meaning it travels more than 5 times the speed of sound.
The thing about the Arrow is that it's designed for longer range systems. In other words, a long range missile that's being fired at Israel. And these longer range missiles, because they go much higher into the atmosphere, come down with much greater speed. So you need a faster interceptor, one that can also go out further. That's what sets Arrow apart from David Sling and Iron Dome.
The Arrow 3 can even be launched into space before knowing where the target missile is going. It can change direction dramatically mid-flight, and kind of like an eagle spotting its prey, it can dive bomb, slamming directly into the incoming threat. Hit to kill. You know, I started by saying that the Iron Dome alone doesn't explain how Israel was able to so effectively repel Iran's attack. But even these 3 systems working together don't give us a full picture of what defenses Israel can count on, because for that, we have to look well outside Israel's borders. According to various media reports, 2 U.S. squadrons of F-15 Strike Eagles took down dozens of attack drones in midair heading towards Israel. 2 Navy destroyers in the Mediterranean intercepted several ballistic missiles, some of which, both a missile and a number of drones, hadn't even been launched. They were struck and destroyed preemptively in Houthi-controlled parts of Yemen. In all, according to U.S. Central Command, it destroyed more than 80 suicide drones and at least 6 ballistic missiles intended to strike Israel from Iran and Yemen. The UK's Prime Minister confirmed his country's Typhoon jets also shot down a number of Iranian drones. Jordan, too, says it intercepted some number of flying objects that entered its airspace. And other countries, like Saudi Arabia, provided intelligence.
The allyship is extremely important to Israel, and Israel is a very small country geographically. In terms of its size, it has a very advanced military, but it is very reliant on assistance, especially from the U.S.
Israel has proven incredibly resilient to attack. There is no precedent for this kind of assault on this scale from Iran. But bear in mind, it also knew this attack was coming. It attacked Iran's consulate in Syria 2 weeks ago, killing 2 Iranian generals. It likely would have expected retaliation, and it had at least days of advance warning from the United States that drones and missiles would soon be on the way.
Iran was surprisingly transparent, not only publicly, but also privately through diplomatic back channels to the US and Israel to clearly signal that an attack was coming.
Yet, even still, of the 300 drones and missiles Iran launched, a dozen or so got through, hitting an Israeli airbase and severely injuring a 7-year-old girl. So now, as Israel weighs its next move, strike back or de-escalate, it will have to take into account how willing its partners will be to wage a wider war. Because if one thing has become clear, it's that Israel counts on its allies not just for funding, but also for firepower. It can't go it alone.